My name is Loring Harkness. I'm head of commercial at Brainbot, a crypto venture builder based in Mainz, Germany. And Brainbot is one of the core contributors to the Shutter network, which focuses on commit and reveal threshold encryption. Before I got into crypto, I focused on financial inclusion in emerging markets, particularly in Southeast Asia. And I was, for a while, based in Singapore and then in Yangon, Myanmar. And I was living in Yangon in 2021 when there was a military coup. And overnight, kind of the political situation unraveled, the economy collapsed, and the new dictator ended up basically mining the telco and the TradFi banking data in order to identify people who were participating in pro-democracy activities, and then either confiscating assets or arresting those people. And so as a result, a lot of people in Myanmar basically turned to crypto in order to protect their assets or protect themselves, or to move assets out of Myanmar as they were fleeing for safety. And so I got into crypto around the same time. And I started collaborating with Brainbot on a community currency project for internally displaced people in northern Myanmar. We enjoyed working together so much that I was lucky enough for them to invite me to Germany and join the team full time. So I've been working with Brainbot for the past 3.5, 4 years now, and I've worked with them on a range of different projects. As I mentioned earlier, Brainbot is a crypto venture builder, and so I've worked on a range of topics, including under collateralized lending platforms, payment channels, roll-up to roll-up bridges, and then most recently on Shutter Network, which is encryption as a service specializing in commit and reveal threshold encryption. I can speak about my own experiences. I obviously can't speak for Myanmar people. But the coup in February 2021 in Myanmar triggered both an extraordinarily difficult period, but also in the early days of protests, there was something really beautiful. People flooded out onto the streets of Yangon and other major cities, and they brought with them their real identities. So you saw nurses in OR scrubs, and you saw engineers in their high-vis clothing. You saw teachers in their green longies. And you saw drag queens, in full drag. And it was wonderful to see everyone going out into the streets and celebrating the democratic period that they had just enjoyed and experienced, and all of the freedoms which they valued so much. Unfortunately, that kind of beautiful period of colorful protest didn't last long. The military dictatorship introduced violence, sniping some protesters and killing them, and arresting a large number of pro-democracy activists. And this is really where people turned to cryptocurrencies for the properties of self-sovereignty and being able to make pseudonymous transactions. There is someone I am aware of who was a very prominent activist and media personality who advocated strongly against the new military dictatorship. And he learned that his name was on one of the arrest lists. And so what he did as a result was he basically converted all of his life savings into cryptocurrency, and then together with his seed phrase, trekked through the jungle from Myanmar into Thailand. And when he arrived in Thailand, he declared refugee status and was ultimately granted refugee status by another country. And he was able to move to that country and then use his crypto seed phrase to access his life savings and really start building a new life for himself overseas. And he wouldn't have been able to do that without cryptocurrency, because if he had sought to make an international transfer from his Myanmar bank account to his new bank account overseas, that obviously would have been blocked by the military dictatorship. So that's just one of many examples. But there were also people in Myanmar at that time who used the pseudonymous nature of crypto accounts in order to collect funds and distribute funds for pro-democracy activities. And so I think that, oftentimes today people are concerned about crypto becoming the world's largest casino or merely becoming a playground for degens. But I think in many ways what we're doing is we're building the tools which everyone can use if they need it. Hopefully, we will never need to protect ourselves against authoritarian, violent dictatorships like people in Myanmar recently have to. But if that day ever comes, for us, it's the crypto and cypherpunks which are building those tools and teaching people those skills today. I got into crypto because of that very personal experience in Myanmar. I haven't always been a privacy advocate, and I have not had a long history in terms of developing or advocating for privacy-preserving technologies. But I think that it's a good example in many ways. The cliche is that people don't value privacy until the exact moment when they need it. And that was certainly true for myself, and I think it's true for many other people. The world is going through radical changes, and we do see increasing authoritarianism in many places we never expected to see it. So I think we should continue building and not lose heart, because many people who don't value privacy-preserving technologies today may suddenly value them very highly at some point in the near future when circumstances change. I also think that it's worth noting that privacy is not a singular monolithic concept. Privacy does not mean one thing to all people and in all situations. Oftentimes when people hear about privacy, they think about it in terms of secrecy, taking some information and hiding it away from everyone forever and always. And that's not how I think about privacy. I think about privacy as being able to selectively reveal information to whom and when and in what contexts I view as desirable or advantageous. And so privacy-preserving technology can be used in a wide variety of applications for a wide variety of goals. I'm not a builder, so maybe it's hard for me to give advice to builders, but as an entrepreneur, as someone who promotes privacy-preserving technologies and their many use cases, I guess I would say that the cliche is the focal point of any useful technology is not the technology itself. It's the builders, it's the users. It's their goals, their aspirations, their experience, and then working backwards to build technology which serves those purposes. Sometimes I feel that developers let the tail wag the dog. In other words, they become so obsessed with the technology itself and with making sure that the technology conforms to some philosophical construct or abstract theory, that they forget the user experience and whether that technology is actually proven useful or valuable. And so I would encourage developers to always keep the users in mind and build for users. One of the challenges that we have faced at Shutter in terms of promoting commit and reveal threshold encryption is that we have a very pragmatic view about privacy. Commit and reveal threshold encryption can be applied to a wide variety of different use cases, many of which people don't naturally think of as being privacy promoting or privacy preserving. And just to give you kind of an idea of the wide spectrum, our moonshot at Shutter is to implement encrypted mempools on Ethereum mainnet, the L1. And the benefit of doing that is that it prevents malicious MEV and real-time censorship. And it does so by allowing users to encrypt transactions before they go into the public mempool. And because their transaction is encrypted, it means that malicious MEV bots are blind to the contents of the transaction. And as a result, the malicious MEV bots cannot place transactions before and after their transaction. In other words, they can't front run or sandwich attack your transaction. After that transaction has been ordered in the block, then it's decrypted and processed as normal. So you can see from this example that when we talk about encrypted mempools, we're not talking about encrypting a transaction and making it fully private and keeping it fully private. The transaction itself is not secret. It's merely encrypted for a specific period of time before it goes into the public mempool until it's ordered in the block. And it's encrypted for a very specific purpose, to prevent malicious MEV bots from manipulating that transaction or to prevent validators from doing real-time censorship and excluding that transaction. And so I think when explaining this to people, we can explain it to them from a number of different perspectives. We can say, this is privacy technology, but the way that we often explain it to people is we're keeping your money safe. Shutter encrypted mempools basically keeps malicious MEV bots from stealing money from you. And that's a message which resonates with a lot of people, but it's not something which people naturally think of as being related to privacy. On the other end of the spectrum, we do a lot of fun things. Like in February this year, we released something called Shutter Hongbao. And for those of you who are familiar with East Asian customs, Hongbao are these red envelopes which are often filled with cash and given to young people during the Chinese New Year or Lunar New Year. And so Shutter created a digital version of this using commit and reveal threshold encryption. And so basically you could create a red envelope, fill it with an ERC20 token, and then the contents of that red envelope would be encrypted until Chinese New Year, and then it would be decrypted, and the recipient of that red envelope could see the gift that was inside. Again, that is not, it's a privacy application, but it's not something which a lot of people think of as privacy because it doesn't have to do with secrecy. Again, it's privacy for a specific purpose and for a specific period of time. And then, so we talked about, encrypted mempools as the most serious application and Shutter Hongbao as the most fun and trivial application. Well, there's lots of applications somewhere in the middle. Commit and reveal threshold encryption can be used and is extremely powerful for implementing a wide variety of use cases, everything from making sure that on-chain games are fair and credibly neutral, making sure that DAO votes are of high integrity, ensuring that RFP procurement processes are not subject to corruption, and running auctions which actually yield more satisfying outcomes both for participants and for auction hosts. I probably am not the best person to give advice about a personal privacy stack. I loved the Web3 Privacy Now profiles of privacy advocates and the tools which they use. I use some of those tools, but I probably don't use enough. And the reason why is probably two reasons. Number one, just the general inconvenience of using some privacy preserving tools. And number two, network effects. A good example of that is that everyone in crypto is on Telegram and uses that as a way to connect. We as a movement, as a community, collectively need to choose better tools and do so en masse in order to become effective, not just for everyone, but for individual users. Staying positive during the process of building and going to market, I think I have two ideas here. And one of them is kind of small vision, and the other is big picture. So on a small vision, I think it's really important to iterate extremely quickly, to always be in motion and always be releasing products or services into the market, getting feedback from real users, and then making changes based on those feedback. And I think, well, as an aside, on the wall of my office, just off camera, I actually have this big sign, and it says, "If you're not embarrassed, you should be embarrassed." And for me, that's really grounding because I know that whenever we create an MVP, we always have this struggle, a lot of angst about whether we should release it into the market, even though it's unfinished, or whether we should make some additional features to make it a little bit more robust or a little bit easier to use. And that sign reminds me that we should always put things out into the market as soon as possible. And we should always, get user feedback as soon as possible. And I think we need to respect people who do that as well. After we released Shutter Hongbao in a very rough form, like an alpha version, I actually shared it in a private Telegram group with some people who are focused on privacy. And one guy was extremely critical, and he wrote back, "This is why privacy is failing." And he, I think, was kind of offended in some sense that someone would release an alpha version of a product Instead, he expected everything to have kind of a slick UX and snazzy marketing behind it. But if we build things until we think they're perfect and then release them, we're actually going to be missing a very valuable conversation with our users, because creating something amazing is not something we can do as individuals or even as a siloed team. It's something that we always do in collaboration with our users. But then on the big picture side of things, I always keep in mind that, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of people who come to crypto because of the casino, because of the speculation and the degen games. And actually, if you know me, I love those on-chain games as well. But I also recognize that a lot of those people who only care about financial speculation are actually learning about tools and skills which may protect them in the future. They're learning about concepts like self-sovereignty, about censorship resistance, about permissionlessness, about anti-fragility. And they may not be valuing those concepts or using them on a day-to-day basis right now, but I'm comforted by knowing that if the shit hits the fan, and if they are put in a situation where they need to utilize those tools and those skills for their own survival or their own well-being, the degens today will actually be able to use those skills for themselves tomorrow.